Well, hey everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Michael Woodward, and my pronouns are he and him. I've been an out and proud transgender man for more than 24 years, and I'm the co founder and the vice president of Traction, which is short for Trans Community Action. I'm here today with my awesome friend and fellow Traction board member, Laura America, to welcome you all to the launch of our 2022 Community Campfire series. This is the next evolution of all the great conversations we've had over the last 2 years since the pandemic began. We have music from two of your favorite trans musicians, Namoli Brennet and Byrne, and we're super excited to share with you the conversation we recently had with Dr. Umair Shah, the Washington State Secretary of Health.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Americo, she or they pronouns. I'm a journalist and a fitness professional living in New York City. I'm really excited to be a part of Traction and to be a member of the board. I think it's small trans-led nonprofits like this that really make a true difference in the community. Traction's based in Western Washington, and our mission is to cultivate connection and visibility for transgender and gender diverse people through community service in support of underserved communities. And I really do believe that our group is moving forward with that mission.
Traction recognizes there needs to be a societal shift in how trans, two-spirit, non-binary, and gender diverse people are seen and understood in the world. We believe the best way to create change is not just to be visible, but to show up, to demonstrate our humanity person by person, person to person, by working collaboratively with people of all genders on community service projects that strive to lift up the most vulnerable among all of us.
You'll learn more about Traction later in the program, but what you may already know is that we have been in collaboration with the Washington State Department of Health since January 2021 to develop social media messages about COVID-19 vaccines and safety protocols targeted specifically to trans and queer communities in Washington.
Yeah, and as a result of that work, Traction was invited to have a conversation with Dr. Umair Shah, the Washington State Secretary of Health. So a few days ago, Traction community partner Michelle Matlock and I talked with Dr. Shah about the Department of Health's outreach and service to trans and non-binary communities, and why we as a gender diverse population, especially trans women and femmes of color, face so many health disparities and risks, especially during the pandemic.
But before we get into all that, how about some music?
Yeah.
As you know, Traction hosted 3 events last year showcasing live music by trans and gender diverse musicians. One of our featured artists was the incredible singer-songwriter, Namoli Brennet. Namoli is at heart a songwriter with a desire to communicate something profound. Her performances touch on her experiences as a trans person while connecting it with the wider experience of what it means to be marginalized. Coming up is a live rendition of Namoli's moving anthem of inclusion, We Belong, which was filmed at Club Congress in Namoli's hometown of Tucson, Arizona, where she has a huge following. Listen for the audience singing along in 4-part harmony. Enjoy and feel free to sing along too at home. After all, what is a campfire without a sing-along?
Some of you sang this with me in a chorus, for crying out loud. You probably know the harmony parts to it. But it goes, and when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. You want to try that? You need a little practice? Are you feeling a little less confident than you were 5 minutes ago? We got this. Oh, I don't know if we got that. Okay, so 2, 3, 4. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. here's to all the tough girls. Here's to all the sensitive boys. We belong, and here's to all the rejects. And here's to all the misfits. We belong. Here's to all the brains and the geeks. And here's to all the made-up freaks. Yeah, we belong. Here we go. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong. We belong anyway. Oh my God, that sounds good. I don't know if this song has ever sounded sweeter than it sounds here tonight in Tucson, Arizona. Here's to all the one-hit wonders. Here's to all the mistakes and the blunders. We belong. Here's to all the fashion don'ts. Here's to all the Friday night homes. We belong. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong. We belong anyway. Here's to all the outspoken minorities. And here's to those who chose diversity. We belong. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong. We belong anyway. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong. We belong anyway. Let's do one more. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. And when the same old voices say that we'd be better off running away, we belong anyway. Thanks so much.
You know, I was there that night of that concert. In fact, I've known Namoli for more than 20 years, and I've really had the distinct pleasure of watching her grow and blossom into her authentic self, both as a woman and as an artist. Every moment with her is special and magical. And being able to sing with her on stage myself, oh my God, that was such an honor. Thank you, Namoli, for lending us your beautiful voice once again.
Very early in my own transition, I found her on a public access network, and she was one of the people who really showed me personally that I can be myself and spread my own voice and tell my own stories. So I've always appreciated her as an artist.
Absolutely.
We'll have more music for you after our conversation with the Secretary of Health. And you're going to want to have a tissue handy.
For real, yeah.
So let's move on to the main event. Umair Shah, MD, MPH, joined Governor Jay Inslee's cabinet in December 2020. Prior to this, Dr. Shah served as Executive Director and Local Health Authority for Harris County Public Health in Texas, the public health agency for the nation's third largest county with 4.7 million people. Over the course of his distinguished career, Dr. Shah has been a clinician, an innovator, an educator, and a leader in health nationwide. Listen now while he talks with Michael and Michelle about the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the trans, two-spirit, and gender diverse populations around the state.
So good afternoon. My name is Michael Woodward. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a transgender man who transitioned in the late 90s. And I've been working in trans and queer advocacy ever since, with a special focus in public health. And I'm the co-founder and the vice president of Traction, which stands for Trans Community Action. Michelle?
Hi, my name is Michelle Matlock, and my pronouns are they and them. And I am the founder of Circle Up Productions, located in Tacoma, Washington.
Before we get started, one of our board members, Brooke Wiley, was going to join us today, but she's not feeling well. And Brooke is a two-spirit woman of the Colville Confederated Tribes, and she wanted me to pass on this message. Said, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all residing on stolen land. I'm personally living on Duwamish land. If you know whose land you're living on, give them an acknowledgement. If not, you should do a little research to learn whose land you reside on. Many places have a system set up so you can pay rent directly to the tribe, and I highly encourage you to actually pay this rent. So thank you, Brooke, for that. All right, Dr. Shah, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And, a lot of people aren't really familiar with the role of Secretary of Health, so maybe tell us a little bit about what you do, and are you elected or appointed, and, whatever you want to say about that.
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. Thanks for having me. And again, this is really a very challenging time for all of us, for all of our communities, all of our community members. And I just want to start by saying thank you to you for making it known, for the advocacy that's required for all community members, and certainly for making sure that we fight this pandemic together. And that has been our focus throughout this pandemic, and now closing on 2 years. Really, this has been a significant challenge for all of us in this state. And as you know, I transitioned from Texas. Governor Inslee appointed me the Secretary of Health back in December of 2020. I'm now having to make sure I have my years correct here. Just a year plus ago. And as you know, that I'm a public health practitioner at heart. I'm also a healthcare provider. I've spent 20 years taking care of our veterans in our VA hospital system in Houston. And I will tell you that this is, and been through a number of emergencies, this is likely the biggest crisis that any of us have experienced, because of both how all involved it is, how it's impacted everyone, but also the length of time that we've been through this. So the Secretary of Health is the lead agency, the lead of the health agency, the Department of Health at the Washington State. It's an appointed position, as I mentioned, by a governor, in this case, Governor Inslee, and it is charged with programs and specific activities, everything from, the safety and quality of air and drinking water to, our infectious disease or chronic health condition response, everything from opioids to mosquitoes. And we don't have as many of these, thankfully, as we did in Texas. And then, finally, it has an incredible role for leading emergency response. And that includes for pandemics such as COVID-19, the public health response to it with our partners on the ground, including our local health jurisdictions, our tribal nations, as well as everybody else in the community. And I, as the Secretary of Health, am humbled and honored to be able to lead this incredible group of Department of Health staff and partners out there so that we can ultimately really impact the health and well-being of community members. So hopefully, Michael, that helps in providing a perspective on both our agency, but also on the Secretary of Health position.
Sure, thank you. Michelle, you want to take it?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shah. So public health officials all over the country are resigning from their positions, citing unprecedented levels of stress, harassment, and even death threats since the pandemic began. You moved here from Texas, and you've been in your job for a little over a year now. You seem to be going along undaunted and upbeat, but I doubt that it's all been smooth sailing. Have you or your staff been through any of that, either in Texas or here in Washington?
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that. And, I'll tell you that I'm an eternal optimist, is probably the way you always look at me. I am a realist as well, but I take a very positive approach to things, probably because I've gone through a lifetime of challenges, family, fiscal, financial, health challenges, taking care of sick parents who have had chronic health conditions, getting community members, family members through very, very trying, difficult times. And my parents always taught me to two things: do good and do well. You do well as you hit it out of the park, you get straight A's, you do the best you can, and you do good, that you don't do it for a nefarious cause, you do it for helping people. And that's been my career throughout. And so, I bring that up from the standpoint of that it has been really my life goal to help people, protect people, to save lives. That's how I did as an emergency department physician, as a primary care physician, but also in my role in population and public health is really how do you treat the community as your patient and save the most lives you can. But that vilification, that real challenge of we are not the problem, but we're part of the solution, has been really the concern that we've had in public health throughout the nation, the globe, and certainly here in the state of Washington and back home in Texas, was that one day, I guess in the early part of the pandemic, when I was on the front lines, I all of a sudden had 200 new Twitter followers. I thought, this is fantastic, that's great. People are excited to hear my message, and it turned out that most of them were like not in favor of what or who I was. And so it was a real eye-opener for me, just the reminder of just how this has been a pandemic that has challenged all of us, but it's also been a pandemic where people have set their eyes on, because people are frustrated and people are concerned, and it's been, it's impacted every single piece of one's life. And so naturally they are frustrated. And when you vent frustration, you vent it at the people you see or you think is responsible for things. When our common enemy is the virus, we tend to, look at each other. And so that's where our team has really been just so amazing. But they have also, Michelle, had some real challenges where people have lashed out against them. And this has been really the hardest part of this. We want to be the champions for our communities and health and well-being, and people then sometimes, because of how they've seen the politics, see us as not the solution, but they see us as part of where they want to lash out to. So we've seen it, we felt it, we've individually felt it sometimes if you're going to a store. We've collectively felt it when somebody, puts something on social media feeds, against us or our department or agency or our work. Or we've felt it as a field, as a sector of public health across the globe. And this has really been unfortunate because ultimately we lose people, lose lives when we don't work together.
Sort of on the other side of that, what do you think is going right here in Washington in regards to the pandemic? And on the flip side, what keeps you up at night?
Well, so much is going right. And, I will say that even in this recent surge with Omicron, I'm looking and I'm constantly on these calls and connected points with the other secretaries of health across the country. And, some of the policies that they had to reenact were policies that we already had in place. The protective measures that we've already put in place have been protective measures that they've had to now institute. And part of that is because we have taken this real, actually not just a part of it, a significant part of that is because we've taken a very protective view of the world. And so that means that while we have lost, unfortunately, now 10,000 Washingtonians to this pandemic, we would have lost thousands, countless thousands more if we had not put in those measures to really protect people. And so our focus on vaccines, our focus now on boosters, our focus on communities that have been disproportionately impacted by this pandemic, whether Hispanic communities or African-American communities, whether geographically communities that are other parts of Washington, or whether it's a fiscal and financial and a social aspect of things. We know that our focus has to be on all Washingtonians and not just one part of Washington. And also, I would say that the other things that have gone well are very much about our partnership with our folks on the ground, whether it's community rooted organizations, whether it's healthcare hospitals and community clinics, whether it's the private sector, whether it's working with our healthcare providers themselves, or whether it's working with community members as we share a laugh, a smile, or we even, have our caravans that are out there, those mobile vaccine units to really help people get vaccinated. It's all about everybody coming together. I get a sense sometimes that Washingtonians forget what's happening throughout the country. And then because of my background as an immigrant and, somebody from Asian American roots, I also have a feel for what's happening across the globe. And I just think at times we take a very insular view to Washington, and we forget about all the benefits that we've had to have a governor who has really made sure that he is focused on health and protection. And we've had partners across the system that have done a very similar thing. So, and ultimately it's about Washingtonians, right?
Speaking of isolated communities, let's talk a little bit about the trans community. So two-spirit, non-binary, and trans folks like me, we often have a hard time finding healthcare providers or resources that we trust, even in, supposedly welcoming progressive cities like Seattle. In fact, 1 in 5 trans people have actually been denied healthcare, turned away at the door, specifically because they're trans, whether it's, for cancer or a broken arm or COVID-19. This has happened to me actually personally more than once. So many of us are not going to trust the traditional sources of healthcare and public health. And so in regard to the pandemic, it really has little to do with politics. It's really about how we've been treated and historically. So what does your team at the health department do to earn the trust needed to keep my community safe and healthy during the pandemic?
Well, Michael, thank you. And, I think the first and foremost is to name it, is to acknowledge it, is to really say that this is important to us as an agency and that we stand with you. We are part of you. You are part of us. We are a community together. So I think there's a first is this real acknowledgement of it, because when you're right, when we talk about equity and we talk about concepts of, disproportionately impacted community, big terms that are really critical to us and really important for us, that doesn't mean anything to people. Right? It doesn't mean something to the community member on the ground who's facing a stigma or an issue where the door has been closed for them because of who they are. And that is a real problem. And so I think the first is acknowledging it. The second is to amplify the voice in championing the concerns and the issues. And then third is to take real true steps towards it. And so there are a number of things that we at the Department of Health have been doing as part of the state's approach to this, so that, we do recognize that a lot of this is really about how do we work together and come up with those actions, and not just let me back up and say it this way, not just talking the talk, but walking it. I'm going to just be frank. Let's talk about, we can talk till the cows come home, but until we actually take bona fide steps to break down those barriers and the stigmas that are associated, the systemic aspects of this, and not just the individual aspect, we will continue to have institutional racism, will have continued to have institutional bias against people of, and you name all of them, because they're all in that mix. And so until we take those actions, then it really is talk. And so I'm so fortunate that we're part of a state system where, from our state agencies and also Department of Health, we believe this is so important for us to work together.
One of Traction's areas of focus in the next year is connecting with the hundreds of isolated trans, non-binary, and two-spirited folks living in remote, rural areas of the state. It is a tall order. How does the Department of Health work to get vaccines and public health information out to those who aren't near a city or who don't have smartphones or broadband services?
Yeah, so, I think, Michelle, the first and, foremost thing that I want to recognize is that we have to be of the community. That also means that we have to make sure that our staff that we were recruiting from a broad, diverse community, we also have to make sure we develop that staff. And so I'm very proud of the trainings that our teams have undergone to make sure that we have the appropriateness on how we work with communities, a broad spectrum of communities, all communities, and we do not leave people behind. And so when you talk about vaccine and the approach to vaccines and making sure the vaccines are available on every single corner of our state, we have demonstrated our commitment to that. So there are two things that we had done last year. One was this approach with public-private partnerships. So, the Starbucks and the Costco's and the Amazons of the world, to say, if they can get, an example of that I always like to use a little bit jokingly, but it's truth to it, which is if Starbucks can get a latte in your hand 30% faster, well, they could help us with our mass vaccination clinics to be 30% more efficient on how we get vaccines into the arms of Washingtonians. That public-private partnership was recognized across the country being so critical. But then it was about the VIX, which was not the VAX, about VACCS, which was around public-private partnership, but the VIX, which was this Vaccine Implementation Collaborative, which brought community members, advocacy groups together throughout the last of the year and really talk through what were we missing? What did we need to do to reach communities that were oftentimes marginalized or left out? That real aspect of working to hear the voices of people on the ground, then complemented the public-private partnerships. So it wasn't just about speed and efficiency and fast, but it was also about how do we make sure that we're equity focused, that we're approaching all communities and we're working together. So I think that is really the platform that I start with. It's the floor. And then on top of that, when we now look at boosters or we look at testing availability, as you know, Governor Inslee's announcement with the additional millions of tests that are going to be procured for Washingtonians, when we look at how do we assure that people have hospital healthcare access, it's about the platform for me of public-private partnership and working so that we have the voices of community, the broad spectrum of community together. So that's the approach we're taking, not just for where we've been, but the road ahead. And if I could, Michael and Michelle, just say one quick thing, which is there are two ways of ending this pandemic. Both will end the pandemic. One is transactional, where we have a one and done. Thank you so much. Pandemic is over, and we move on as we do as Americans to the next shiny object or the next headline. The other is transformational, where everything we learned, all of the different challenges we've had, we use those to transform our systems so we work better together for the next emergency or the many emergencies that are happening every single day in our communities. That's where we are as a department. And that's where I'm focused on, is trying to make sure that we're thinking not just transactionally, but transformatively on health for the future.
So Dr. Shah, let's talk about hospitalizations and things for a moment. So data about gender identity and sexual orientation is not currently collected in hospital discharge data, also known as CHARS, which is what drives much of the analysis of who's being treated and why when they're being released from the hospital. I know you know this. If those data aren't being collected, how do you know if our communities are being adequately receiving services? And what's the state going to do to fix that? And also, what happens to that data? Because a lot of people are concerned about privacy. If they tell somebody in responsible position that they are trans or whatever, they're worried about what happens to that data. So can you kind of address all of that at the same time?
Yeah, I can, and this is a broad. We could spend 1 hour on just this topic alone, and I think it's really about we need to make sure that people are seen. I'll be very honest. We need to make sure people are seen, and that's critical. If you don't even collect the data, how are you going to be able to enumerate, to count, to be seen, to see people when you don't even? So there's a national issue here that we've got to acknowledge, what's happening in the data systems and the lack of granularity, appropriate granularity on how those data systems are collecting information. But the other piece of it is, it's not just about the quantity of data and the numbers, it's also about the quality, the strength of that information, and also making sure that we do everything we can to work alongside community members just like you. So you keep us honest with what's happening in this. So even if the systems aren't collecting that information, that we are getting the perspectives of communities. Again, this is why that collaborative that I talked about previously is so important, is how do we get that information so we are absolutely doing the right things by our community members, all of our community members. And then the final thing is just making sure that we continue to champion the voices of what we are hearing on the ground so that we can have policies that are appropriately addressing. All of that is very complex and complicated, but it's also necessary in order for us to move forward. So Michael, in a very quick moment there, I hope that helps explain the strategies that we're taking on while we also look to the longer term issues around data.
A lot of people in our community, especially Black trans women, work in essential but informal high-risk jobs such as sex work. They face risks every day for not just COVID-19 and other health conditions, but often violence or death. What can these essential workers do to stay healthy and safe at work during the pandemic? And what is the Department of Health doing to support and protect them?
Well, first and foremost, Michelle, this is that, these very community members cannot go quiet, if that's the right way to say it. Is it, make your voice heard, make your health issue known, and let us also work together with community groups like yours and others to really come up with those solutions so we're not leaving people behind. We certainly don't want the stigma and people feeling that they need to go underground and they don't matter. We cannot let that happen.
Agreed. So I realize we're out of time, but I wanted to say, do you have any questions for us, or is there anything you'd like to share with our members before we wrap up?
I hope you saw there was an op-ed that I penned in the Seattle Times this past week, and I hope you have a chance to look at that. It really talked about hope and optimism. And we know, as I said at the very beginning, there is reality, but there's also an optimism to where we're going to be, hopefully, once we get past this latest variant. But there will be other variants that will come, and there'll be other challenges. This is a super squirrely virus that's broken every rule in the playbook, and we have to be absolutely willing to evolve as we can. At some point, we want to also make sure the message of empowerment, what people can do to empower themselves to be healthy and safe and protected, as well as this living with COVID, because we know that COVID is going to be around for longer than any of us would like. And we need to keep focused on that. So champion our messages of get vaccinated, get boosted, of getting tested, what to do if you at the end of the day have that don't have all the resources. Please make sure you have the resources of good information. And finally, we will get through this difficult time. And when we get through that, I look forward to coming back and talking to you about the bright future days ahead. And so with that, Michael and Michelle, thank you so much for having me. I wish we had more time, but I appreciate the time that we did have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we do look forward to talking to you again. So you can count on it. All right. Be well.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, he covered so much ground in that short time. I really wish we'd had time to dig into some of those responses, but we were just trying to get through all those questions. But I was really happy that he said that we could talk to him again sometime, and I'm really looking forward to that. But there's been a lot of talk about the Great Resignation lately. And I think that what's most concerning to me about our public health workers and healthcare providers, they're so fed up with how they're being treated by so much of the population that they're just washing their hands of serving the public, so to speak. Sorry, bad pun. If not the experts, then who? Who's going to do this work, right? Who's going to keep us safe? This is some really hard stuff. And as he said, hope and optimism is the only way to go forward.
And he's right. We need to be seen as trans and queer people, or need to be accounted for and included accurately, globally in all industries, but especially healthcare. The focus is almost exclusively on cisgender, heterosexual people with little tolerance for variance.
Yeah, all the systems must be transformed, as he said, to accurately and authentically measure the health of all the public with the granularity that we discussed. If there's no evidence of disparity, there will be no change. So thanks again to Dr. Shah and all of his staff who helped Traction put together this interview for all that they do to try to save us nutty humans from ourselves.
So Michael, Traction seems to have taken a unique approach to bringing trans people together.
Yeah, the concept of a service organization is certainly nothing new. Perhaps if you've heard of the Kiwanis or the Rotary Club, right? Or maybe the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence if you're in the queer community. All of those are examples of individual people coming together to make a difference. And while they do so, they make new friends and connections. The founders of Traction met each other volunteering at the Gender Odyssey conference in Seattle, and we all became friends. It was that sense of community through service, combined with the ongoing need for trans visibility in society, that inspired the birth of Traction.
Well, I'm guessing that the post-pandemic version of Traction is probably going to look a lot different than what you all envisioned back in 2019. But given the state of the world right now, I am convinced that there's a need for this type of organization now more than ever. That's why I was really excited to be invited to join the board of directors. Traction's goal is to build a body of trans and queer volunteers eager to participate in a variety of service projects and offer our collective energy and resources to assist underserved populations. In doing so, we promote trans positivity within broader society while helping those in need. It's really simple to join Traction. All you have to do is sign up for our mailing list, which you can do by going to our website at tractionpnw.org. Just click on Become a Member, fill in your name and address, and click Sign Up.
Yeah, I think it's also important to know that Traction is a virtual nonprofit organization and doesn't have an office or other operations and overhead that some others do. That's by design. And that was before the pandemic even. But we don't have any staff. Traction has had to limit our projects and our outreach because of the limited capacity of our existing team of volunteers. Nobody has time right now. But we're ready to change that though, and we need your help.
Traction is currently working to raise funds to hire staff and develop the infrastructure needed to sustain the organization long term. and at the same time expand our programming to meet the needs of the community. If you're enjoying today's program and would like to show us some love, we welcome your donations. Just go to that same website, tractionpnw.org, and click the donate button. Thank you so much if you're able to do that today.
Yeah, thank you. Really, we so much appreciate it. And I know everybody's stretched really thin right now, so we appreciate any help you can give. But getting back to our conversation with Dr. Shah about the importance of data and being counted, I wanted to talk a moment about the U.S. Trans Survey that's coming up. That'll be happening this year. And I want to encourage everyone, all of our viewers, to take the survey. All of our trans and non-binary and two-spirit and gender diverse viewers. If you're cis, sorry, you don't get to play this time. Anyway, so the U.S. Trans Survey, or also called USTS, is the largest survey of trans people in the United States. The survey documents the lives and experiences of trans people in the U.S. and U.S. territories. The surveys for all people age 16 and up who are not cisgender, including both binary and non-binary trans identities. Anybody who's on the scale, the spectrum, whatever you want to call it, of gender diversity and not identifying as cis. We really want folks to take this survey. It's the main source of data about trans people for media, educators, policymakers, grant makers, and the general public. It covers health, employment, income, criminal justice system, mental health, suicidality, all this stuff. All those numbers that you've heard us talk about today and that you hear trainers discuss when they're doing Trans 101 trainings, things like that. A lot of this data comes from the USTS. These reports have been a vital source, including the reports of the experiences of people of color and reports by state. And that allows for that granularity of data that Dr. Shah and I discussed. In 2015, nearly 28,000 people took the USTS, making it the largest survey of trans people in the United States. And they're really hoping to, get even more people, maybe double that number. The first one only had about 7,000. The second one had 28,000. So with all this outreach, you can imagine how many people we could actually get to take this survey. And there's power in those numbers. And a lot has happened since then, and it's time to conduct the trans survey again, because 2015 was a long time ago as far as the world continuing to pass by, right? More than ever, it's important to ensure that trans voices will help shape the future. So please help the USTS continue to be the largest, most diverse sample across all identities. Please help spread the word to ensure that people of color, older people, people with disabilities, those who live in rural areas, immigrants, Spanish speakers, and those who are HIV positive, help them all hear about the survey. And you can learn more and take the pledge to take the survey by visiting www.ustranssurvey.org. It'll take you a few minutes. I mean, probably 20, 30 minutes to get through the whole thing. But it's so worth it. And the data that comes out of those are like gold. It really has changed the fundraising landscape for the trans community by having that data. I've been around long enough to know before we had data, we didn't have any money. And, now that we're getting this data, people are realizing just how bad it is for trans folks, especially trans folks of color. So having that data is super important. So again, I ask you to pledge, just take the survey, go to the website. There's a little form you fill out, and then they will add you to their mailing list. And when the survey comes out, you just take it and you're good to go. So with all that, thank you. I want to thank you all for joining us for this first Community Campfire 2022. I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. So now to wrap things up, I want to turn it over to Laura to introduce Mia, who will play us out. Laura, take it away.
So I'm very, very honored to present the next song by Byrne. I know Mia personally because she used to live in New York City, where I live right now. And even though she's gone, I always feel the lingering ghosts of Byrne walking throughout town, waiting for her to return physically. And this song was made when she was moving to the West Coast. And it was a time where she had just learned that a friend of hers was diagnosed with ALS. And right after the song came into fruition and she moved to San Francisco, the pandemic happened. So the song has a very special meaning, not just for her, but for us listening with our own interpretations. So with that being said, I would love to present to you Till the Next Time by Mia.
Till the next time I see you, till the next time I'm here, till the next time we're together. May your light be bright, may the road be clear. Till tomorrow, till next week, till next month, till next year, till the next time we're together. Till the next time we're here. Good friends are hard to find. Keep them close in your heart and your mind. Friends like you are rare with so much love for a friend in need. Till the next time we raise a glass, till the next time may these moments swiftly pass. Till the next time we pick a song, till the next time we're together, I hope it won't be too long. Good friends are hard to find. Keep them close in your heart and your mind. Friends like you are rare indeed, with so much love for a friend in need. Till the next time I see you, till the next time I'm here, till the next time we're together, till the next time